Hi, it's Emily and this is my July wrap up. So I had a really good reading month in July. I ended up reading 12 books, which is quite good for me. I normally range between like 8 to 10, maybe maximum 10. So I'm very happy with 12. So yeah, I guess we should just jump right on in and see what I read. I had a good reading month in regards of like what I read as well. So most of them were pretty high, like 4+ stars. Although there was one 2-star and a couple of 3.5s. I think, can't actually remember off the top of my head, but we'll get to all that in a moment. So yeah, I guess we should just jump right on in with the first book. So the first book that I read in July was After the Rain by Jo Watson. This was from the scavenger hunt video I did with my brother where he kind of helped pick my next book. I gave this 5 stars because I just love the Destination Love series. This is book 4 and it kind of inspired me to reread the first 3 as well, which I have started doing. It's just such a funny laugh out loud book that I just have so much love for this series. This one follows Stormy Rain and Marcus. Stormy Rain has like some fear of flying. When she goes to Lily, her like kind of ex-stepsister's wedding. Lily is in book 1 of the series. When she's invited to this wedding, they send her on the flight with this guy Marcus, who is Damien, Lily's like fiance's cousin. If that makes sense, I feel like that does anyway. And so they're very different. Stormy Rain kind of believes in like auras and, you know, checks the signs for everything, whereas Marcus is very logical. He's, you know, I think it says on the back he overshines his already too shiny shoes, so he's that kind of guy. And they kind of have some bumps along the way, like travel wise, so they end up going on a road trip to another airport to get this flight, and so they kind of get to know each other and they really end up winding each other up, but there is a kind of a fine line between love and hate. So yeah, it's very, very good. I really enjoyed it for sure, and it's from both perspectives, so I really enjoyed it. So the next book that I read was My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This was for horror, my prompt for horror in my TBR game last month. I got this for my birthday from my uncle. I didn't tab that much in it, just kind of bits that were like, oh damn, okay. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it and I loved that it was set in the 80s and all the chapter headings I think are 80s songs. So I listened to 80s music anyway, like quite a lot. So that was nice to like recognise some of the titles. So this is basically about these girls and they decide to go skinny dipping. They're teenagers in America and they decide to go skinny dipping randomly while they were trying to get high on drugs, I think it was, and nothing was happening, and they were just like, right, let's just go skinny dipping. And then one of their friends, Gretchen, kind of like disappears, like no one can find her, and so it goes a bit wrong. However, then they do find her and weird stuff begins to happen, and yeah, it kind of leads on from there. I am going to be lending this book to my friend tonight, so I'm so glad I'm finally filming this early. I hope he doesn't mind my annotations. I forgot that I had annotated it. That was a good read. So the next book that I read was The Letter for the King by Tonka Dragt. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. So this is a middle grade fantasy and it's kind of set in kingdoms and there's like knights, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's quite a long middle grade, like took a while. I also gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. So this follows Churi, who is not training, but like is about to become a knight, and to become a knight you have like this visual where you have to stay in this room with all the other like trainee knights, and you're not allowed to answer the door and you're not allowed to speak. However, someone keeps knocking on the door and Churi kind of opens it and there's like this guy standing there and says, I have a very important message that you need to take to the knight with the white shield. And so he just then breaks the rules of becoming a knight, and because he believes this is very important, and so he leaves all the other knights in this like visual and takes this horse and rides out to find this knight, and it ends up going on this massive adventure because things aren't as they seem, and he goes across the kingdom to pass this message on to the king of the other kingdom. Yeah, it was really good. It was kind of full of like really fun activities, I was gonna say. It was just like kind of full of so many twists and turns, and I really loved like the whole world, the kingdoms. Yeah, I would definitely be picking up the sequel, which is The Secret of the Wild Woods, I believe. This is translated from Dutch. It is a Dutch author. So yeah, I really loved it, and I'll definitely be checking out more of her stuff. I didn't realise that this was like first published in 1960 something, so it was still very, very good. I really enjoyed it. So the next book that I read, oh, I've got to say this was my punishment tin like book for the game. So this next book I actually buddy read with Chloe over at Books and Psychology, and that is Mindhunter by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. Yeah, this is a non-fiction that kind of inspired the TV Netflix show Mindhunter. So it's all about the FBI like serial crime unit, and it was about him kind of solving these murders and like talking and interviewing serial killers like Ed Kemper, and how he was jumbling like life with like a wife and kids, as well as trying to solve all these murders and how it affected his life in the long run, being called out all the time to kind of solve these serial killers. And yeah, it was really interesting, like learning about psychology and like interview tactics and techniques that he used to kind of crack the criminals. But yeah, I found it very interesting, and I know Chloe did as well. I ended up giving it also 4 stars. A very good bit of a track coming, but track? I don't know if that's the right word. Trend. I think I'm thinking of trend. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I listened to the audiobook as well. And I will be reading the sequel soon, which is, or it's not a sequel, it's like another book by him. About similar stuff, called The Killer Across the Table, and the audiobook is on Scribd and narrated by Jonathan Groff, who plays John Douglas's character in the Mindhunter Netflix show, if that makes sense. Right, so yeah, that's the next book I read. So we're now going to move on to the Reading Rush books, the books I read during the Reading Rush, which was 8 in the end, so I've impressed myself with that because my current record was 5. The first one's quite short though, that is Orbiting Jupiter by Gary D. Schmidt. I gave this 3.5 stars. It also was a middle grade book for my TBR game. I read this in one day and I quite enjoyed it. So this follows this boy called Joseph, who was kind of had a troubled childhood, and he then is sent to like a juvenile detention centre because he got a young girl pregnant. Well, he was also young, they're both like 13. And so the parents of the girl charged him and sent him away, and was told that they would never get to see the baby or her again. And then while he's at the juvenile detention, another boy there gave him some like drugs, and so he kind of went wild and he accidentally, or like he didn't mean to, but he nearly killed a teacher. So then he got sent to another place that was like really more strict, and kind of he's been like kind of haunted by it. And so then when he comes out, he's fostered by this family, and it's about him and Jack, who's like his new foster brother for his parents, like getting along, and like their relationship. I think they're 2 years apart, maybe 1 year apart in age. Joseph really wants to find his daughter, who's called Jupiter. So yeah, it was quite good. It definitely read like a middle grade, because I know I said in my TBR game I wasn't sure if it was middle grade or YA. It was I think it read more like a middle grade, plus the main characters were like 12, 13 max, maybe 14 was the oldest, maybe. But the point of view of the story was from Jack, who is about like 11, 12. So I think it was a bit like a middle grade. And that was for a book to read outside of your house, because I read it on the ferry and out in the garden on the Isle of Wight. So the next book I read was Crooked House by Agatha Christie. I gave this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favourite Agatha Christie's now that I've read. This one is not a Poirot or Miss Marple or Partners in Crime. It's like just a general mystery. My hand's going wild. So for me, this was the prompt for a adaptation that you've already seen, because I'd seen the movie on Netflix. So this is about this family who's like the grandfather, like the big man of the house, who's very generous, he has lots of money. He dies, and he is like, you know, getting quite old. He's quite an elderly man. However, things are not quite, you know, as they seem. It kind of delves into a mystery of one of the people in the house killed him, and there's like 2 of his sons and their wives. He remarried when his wife died, and she's like 30 years younger than her, so she's also there. Then there's the grandchildren. One's like a really young girl, another one's like 30. Then there's also the old man's sister-in-law who's there, and she's, but anyway. But yeah, and so it follows the point of view of a guy called Charles Hayward, and he has fallen in love with his granddaughter. I really enjoyed it. I didn't even remember what had happened in the film until right at the end, where kind of an event happened, and I was like, damn, I've just remembered. But the reveal and like something was slightly different at the end, but it was still really good. I really enjoyed it. So next I read The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. This was for the prompt for the first book you touched, but it also completed loads of other books. Or prompts, sorry. I gave this 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it for like nostalgia reasons. I'd never read it before, but I had seen the movie when I was younger. Haven't seen it in years. Yeah, it was just like a fun journey to go on. Yeah, I really just enjoyed reading it. I mean, it wasn't my favourite book. It wasn't anything too special, but it was just a fun time. But yes, this is about Mia, who finds out she's the princess of a small country in Europe. Her father is actually like the prince, and that's pretty much it. But she also wants to like kind of have a normal high school life. That's pretty much it. I don't really know what else to say about that one. So the next book I read for the reading rush was Appointment with Death by Agatha Christie. I gave this 4 stars. I quite enjoyed it. I'd seen the adaptation fairly recently. I got sent it by Ness over at Wonderness, and she did like a giveaway and I won it, and this was one of the books I chose, and I really enjoyed it. I'd seen the adaptation fairly recently, and so I kind of remembered all the key events and that sort of stuff. And this completed the prompt for a book set in a different continent, because this happens in Petra. This is a Poirot, and this is about a family who are from America, and the woman, like the mother of these children, is very protective, doesn't like them talking to other people, they're very closed, and she's very demanding and kind of, I was going to say strict, but I don't know if that's the right word. Basically nobody likes her. And then she suddenly dies, and there's no way of telling that she had been murdered except from a kind of needle like hole in her wrist. That was quite exciting, and it was finding out who it was because nobody seems to like her. However, I think some of the kids are scared of her. I say kids, the woman's like 60 or something and the kids are like 20s, 30s, so that was quite good. Nice Agatha Christie there. So the next book I read, I've already returned it to the library, and that is the Black Flamingo by Dean Atter, which completed a prompt for a book cover that matches the colour of your birthstone, because my birthstone's Alexandrite, which could be sometimes in some lights pink. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I really liked that it was written in verse. I thought that really kind of gave a bit more of an impact. So this kind of follows a boy kind of turns to his identity as a mixed race homosexual, and as he goes to university he kind of blossoms as he joins the kind of drag society and becomes this amazing drag act called the Black Flamingo. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. So the next book that I read was another Agatha Christie, and that was The Pale Horse. So this is for a book that starts with the. So this was my least favourite Agatha Christie of like the week that I read recently. I gave it 3.5 stars, so it's still good, but it kind of involves like witches, like these 3 witches that work at the Pale Horse, and kind of weird things happen after people have been to them, such as deaths, and they all kind of suffer from like, and Mark Easterbrook is kind of thrown in the middle of that. There's a list from a priest that wrote down after someone was dying and told them a story, and he wrote down all the names, but then he's murdered, but they find the list with all the names, and yeah, it's quite interesting. It's not my favourite, but I also saw the adaptation quite recently and I knew who it was and I remembered the ending. However, the reveal was very different, so that was quite new, because, you know, even if you know who did it, finding out sometimes it can be quite dramatic, so yeah, that was nice. The next book I read for the reading rush was The Vampire Diaries: The Awakening. I gave it 2 stars. I was not a fan of this. If you want to check out my rant thoughts, have a look at my reading vlog for the reading rush. It was just not fun. I did not like Elena. I found her so irritating, and like I just couldn't stand her thoughts and how like vain she was. Yeah, I just wasn't a fan of it. 2 stars. Probably won't continue the series. I'm glad I listened to it on Scribd and not actually paid money for this. Sorry, but I just wasn't really a fan. And then finally, the last book I read in July is Burning Moon by Jo Watson. This was the last book I finished in the reading rush. I finished it very late at night on the Sunday. Oh, the last book, The Vampire Diaries, was for a genre you want to read more of, because it was like kind of paranormal romance-ish vampires. So I did a lot of tabbing. I really love this. It's the first book in the Destination Love series. I said I was rereading them earlier. This was the first one. Lots of annotations, and just my heart belongs on this. It's just so fun and funny. This kind of follows Lily, who is kind of being ditched at the altar, and just by a note slid under her door, and so she kind of goes and has a breakdown, but then she's like, you know what, I'm going on my honeymoon alone. So she goes on her honeymoon to Thailand alone, where she meets Damien, and he kind of takes her to the Burning Ring Festival after like other events, and so many funny things happen before they get to that stage. But then they go to the festival, and yeah, things kind of go from there. So yeah, this was what probably maybe either this one or After Rain will be my book of the month. They were just so fun. So yeah, I can't remember what I was saying, my camera died. Anyway, so yeah, Burning Rain was, you know, just brilliant. It's just like so fun, and I just have such a good time reading them. Like, they're just right up my alley, and I love that they're all set in different locations around the world. The author is South African, so it was just so fun to read. I can't say that enough. I just love how it just makes me laugh all the time. I just like when they meet, she gets on the plane in her pyjamas, which makes me laugh, because she just, it's like got a little joke on the front, and she just looks horrendous, like she's just rolled out of bed after having, like, you know, just crying her eyes out. She just looks state with like makeup all down her face, but she still gets on this flight to go on her honeymoon on her own, and yeah, it's just so good. Like, all the yellow is, oh, you can't really see the yellow, but like all the times I just laughed out loud. Like, let's see if I can find an example. Oh, so one point, like, she can't remember the night before, and she doesn't know what happened. She got really drunk, and she really gets worried because everyone's like, oh, you're so good last night, Lily, blah blah blah, oh, we had such a good time. And then she wakes up just wearing a guy's t-shirt. She's like, what on earth happened? Her mind goes like the worst places, and all she did was like, oh, I don't want to spoil it, but it was really funny, like what actually happened. I'll stop talking about this. So these are all the books I read in July, plus the Black Flamingo and the Vampire Diaries. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so those are the books I read. I'm very happy with what I did. I'm about to drop them. They're all quite short, but they're all like pretty good. Like, I had a good reading month in terms of rating. But yeah, so thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you soon with a new video. Oh dear, they fell.